House Speaker Kevin McCarthy announcing just a short time ago that he is directing House Republicans to open a formal impeachment inquiry against President Biden. Hello, everyone. This is Outnumbered. I'm Emily Campagno, here with my co-hosts, Kayleigh McEnany and Harris Faulkner. And also joining us today, Fox News contributor, president of KA Consulting, and former senior counselor to President Trump, Kellyanne Conway, and Fox News contributor, Steve Hilton. Now, Speaker McCarthy is calling the impeachment inquiry a logical next step in the multiple probes surrounding President Biden and his role in his son Hunter's overseas business dealings. Watch.
These are allegations of abuse of power, obstruction, and corruption, and they warrant further investigation by the House of Representatives. That's why today I am directing our House committee to open a formal impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden. This logical next step will give our committees the full power to gather all the facts and answers for the American public. That's exactly what we want to know, the answers. I believe the President would want to answer these questions and allegations as well. Now, I do not make this decision lightly. And regardless of your party or who you voted for, these facts should concern all Americans. The American people deserve to know that the public offices are not for sale, and that the federal government is not being used to cover up the actions of a politically associated family. Now, I would encourage the President and his team to fully cooperate with this investigation in the interests of transparency. We are committed to getting the answers for the American public. Nothing more, nothing less. We will go wherever the evidence takes us.
Kellyanne Conway, quite a development. Your thoughts?
The Speaker is right. He promised to get to the bottom of this. And unlike Nancy Pelosi's impeachment of President Trump both times, she announced it after it had already started. There was no inquiry. There was a conclusion in search of evidence. It was a persecution and a prosecution before the president even knew, before we even knew what was happening. This is the right way to do things in Washington, D.C., and this is an inquiry, not an impeachment, important distinction, because we'll see where the facts go. If I were Joe Biden, I would welcome this, because it's reported that he was shocked and saddened that the plea deal for his son fell apart. He keeps denying on the record, as do the people who lie on his behalf routinely, that then Vice President Biden had nothing to do with his son's engagements in countries that are in the news every day, like China and Ukraine. We now have so much evidence that the House Ways and Means, Judiciary and Oversight Committees has already produced that we are way past the point where an inquiry to see if impeachment is even valid should move forward. I'm going to be watching which Democrats, if any, particularly those who won in districts that Trump won the last time, if they'll break ranks and say, I need to save my party, I need to get to the truth, I need to answer the people back home. 61% of Americans, according to a CNN poll last week, said they think President Biden is involved in Hunter's business dealings. So if we have tripartisan support across this country for people thinking the president isn't telling the truth, then this is our only option. Last point. Joe Biden lied to the American people in the debate when he said the laptop was Russian disinformation, trotted out the 51 people, intelligence officers, who said it had the markings. And he lied by saying that he never discussed business with his son. We already know that's a lie. So let's continue to unpack here.
And Steve, I want to draw out one of Kellyanne's points and actually call out the inverse. So for those Republicans who have districts that was carried by Biden, a lot of them, the argument goes, is that they might wish or have wished that it was done the Pelosi way, just an impeachment announced, and sort of saves them the trouble of being held accountable. But in a Wall Street Journal op-ed, the argument is for exactly that. By forcing the impeachment inquiry, it then forces the evidence to be uncovered and for those votes to become, again, holding that accountability that in the long term serves us better.
Yes, because what's important here is the substance, not the politics. And that's why I thought Kevin McCarthy's statement was so strong. And I think generally we should know he's really putting in an impressive performance as Speaker. He had a lot of critics. I think he's doing a great job, and this is another piece of evidence to that. 2 points. The broad point. You hear critics, and even on Fox this morning I heard someone saying, well, you know, this isn't that big. It doesn't rise to the level of impeachment. Why do this? It's absolutely central to what's gone wrong with our politics. The story here, which is about pay-to-play, influence peddling, lobbying, donations, getting the outcome you want from our political system. That is the rot at the heart of our political system, the systemic corruption in Washington that gave rise to Donald Trump, that gave rise even to Bernie Sanders. That's what this is all about. Of course, it needs to be investigated. Secondly, they say, well, it's not a big deal in terms of the specifics here, and Comer's doing a good job. Why do we need impeachment? Is he really? We haven't even touched the real scandal here, cash for gas, US taxpayer money going to Burisma when Biden was in charge of policy on Ukraine and his son was on the board, and the trail of money involving Democrat senators. There's so much to uncover. That's why we need this.
And Kayleigh, the argument as well is that the subpoena power of an impeachment or an impeachment inquiry is such that it would render Congress to sort of call back at the apex of their power.
Yes.
So the argument is that the administration keeps saying there's no evidence here. But the counter to that is there's no evidence because you have stonewalled every attempt at obtaining that evidence, both in the private and the public sector. So here, perhaps, would be able to then let in the sunlight in an accountable way that the Americans then can depend on for its accuracy.
For sure. An impeachment inquiry allows them to potentially get to the bank records that have been stonewalled, to get to the 5,400 records that the National Archives has that have yet to be turned over. But let's look at the facts here. Why are we here at this moment? Okay, Devon Archer, a partner to Hunter Biden, no great friend of Republicans, comes forward and says Joe Biden was the brand. Joe Biden was vice president at that time. Joe Biden was on 20 phone calls, okay? 20 phone calls that Hunter Biden was on with business partners. 20, that's a lot. He went to dinners with him. You can go forward to the list of pseudonyms. Joe Biden was using pseudonyms. Hunter was on some of these emails that gave his official schedule. We want those 5,400 emails with the pseudonyms to see what was said in them. They haven't been turned over yet. The bank records, the 150 plus SARS reports. McCarthy laid out all of this. The FBI informant, the credible FBI informant who in an FD 1023 laid out a potential bribery scheme that he heard of. These are all open questions. The White House will get to give their response. They have a war room in place. And the one admonition I would give to Republicans is impeachment does give Joe Biden a place to frame himself as a victim. They are very confident in the White House that they can use the Bill Clinton model, where Bill Clinton got to his highest approval rating at 73%. So I think the way Kevin McCarthy went about this was methodical. It was smart. It didn't overplay his hand. And every Republican out in the press should follow that model.
Yeah, what's really critical about what you just said, though, and I think that he won't choose to play the victim because it then makes him look even weaker. And with the acuity and age arguments against him, doing that would almost seal his fate with Democrats who would love nothing more right now than to take him off the ticket. Because then it takes that shiny ball out of the way and maybe can get to somebody who actually could compete against Republicans. We have seen how, Nikki Haley and really the whole group of GOP candidates can beat this president in a hypothetical. So look, there are 5 Republicans who are against impeachment inquiry at this point. And I love what Kellyanne said. She said, look, this is the process. We're actually going to see the process. And that means that those 5 could put some pressure on McCarthy to do exactly what you said. Don't turn this into a circus. Don't overreach on this. Let's have some leverage. Let's have it come through sobriety and just staying straight and narrow to get through the facts, to the facts, and deliver them to the American people. And at the end of the day, if this doesn't end up in handing somebody at the DOJ a case that they can adjudicate against the president, then what is the other win for Republicans? The American people get to know the truth. And that might be just as, if not more valuable, to a voting public before November 2024. Some people start voting at the end of August.
That's right.
Before that election. So they got to get moving.
Final thoughts, Kelly?
Well, quickly, people think it's just about age when they look at the polling data. saying even a majority of Democrats now say they don't think Joe Biden is capable for the job. For those Democrats, this is part of it. It's not just age and acuity, agility and ability. It's that they don't want to be dragged down as a Democratic Party by an octogenarian who's every minute of 80, but who also doesn't have any upside anymore. That CNN, the Fox News poll last week, the CNN poll recently, there was no good news for Joe Biden. His personal attributes, he doesn't inspire confidence. He doesn't have a plan. He doesn't care about people like me. His approval rating, his electability against all the Republicans. There literally is no upside to Joe Biden. I would argue even to Kamala Harris at the moment. But baked in these numbers about Democrats and certainly independents, a tripartisan belief that Joe Biden can't handle the job, I've got to believe as part of this scandalabra that is developing for the Biden White House. He's just not worth it.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.